Forms of power. 5 forms of power: legitimate power, coercive power, reward power, expert power, and referent power. Legitimate power is officers invested with authority to command. Coercive power is based on inmate perceptions that prison officers have capacity to punish prisoner disobedience. Reward power describes situations when prisoners perceive that prison officers are able to issue rewards. Expert power derived from prisoners' perception officers have special skills or expertise. Referent power, the power a guard exercises based on gaining the respect and administration of prisoners. Types of authority: personal authority and legalistic authority. Personal authority is from the way that they handle and deal with inmates. Legalistic authority, a group of prison officers through their authority derived from legal foundations and saw no need to earn the right to do it. The battle of compliance. Physical violence is always affected by law guard/inmate ratio. Using violence might touch off further violence. Riots and hostage are possible causes of ruptures in negotiation of power. Rewards and punishments. Good time refers to a portion of inmate sentence that is deducted for good behavior. Systematic rewards for inmates were essential to ensuring their cooperation. Enforcing rule violation. Officers stress that control within prison is now in hands of younger inmates and gangs. Informal controls. These controls can produce ethical issues and dilemmas. A form of informal control was disciplinary reports. Some officers might not like to write a disciplinary report and will resort to locking inmates in their cells. Other informal methods may include guards flushing toilet paper back into particular cells, shutting off electricity for an entire tier of cells, turning off hot water, withholding toilet paper, or keeping back food. Prison power. Surge to prison litigation during 1960s and 1970s. Jailhouse lawyers during this time began to gain status within prison as a source of authority. Some inmates tend to seek control through coercion. A kind of control could include victimizing other inmates. Officers feared spontaneous and unprovoked violence. Inmate violence would be calculated as an act of retaliation for officers' conduct. Officers who wrote too many tickets or beat too many heads would eventually set themselves up for payback. Drugs and alcohol and emotional stability accounted for the lowest number of assaults. Corruption of authority. Prison officers' authority over inmates can become corrupted. Corruption of authority refers to practice by prison officers of deliberately refraining from enforcing prison rules and regulations. Law of authority. When officers become too friendly with inmates and fail to maintain the required social distance, handing over officer tasks to inmates. When inmates carry out duties like mail delivery and housekeeping, the officers may become dependent on their labor, and to the extent their authority may be undermined. Private prisons. In Massachusetts, juvenile institutions changed from being a network of state-run institutions in 1969 to a series of community-based programs and facilities by 1974. Charles Logan defines private prisons as those that are privately owned, operated, or managed under contract to government. Private prisons tend to be more dangerous places, partly because prison officers are paid significantly less than those working at public facilities. Private facilities provide less training and higher inmate-to-staff ratios. Those against privatization stress the ethical and moral implications. It is appropriate for imprisonment to be administered by anyone other than state and its employees. A legal punishment is defined as which is imposed and administered by an authority. The task of the state is to protect individuals, but if the state fails this task, the individuals have the right to dissolve the state. How do private prisons cope with the issue of the use of deadly force? Severe restrictions on the use of deadly force. Some believe that private companies will try to cut costs through inadequate staffing and training of private prison staff. It is unrealistic to argue that private prison staff should be prohibited from using any force because they might be in danger of their own safety. Disenfranchising inmates. In 2022, 48 states prohibited persons with felony convictions from casting a vote. Only Maine and Vermont had no prohibition or restriction. Estimated that in 2022, 4.6 million Americans were forbidden to vote due to felony disenfranchisement. Represents a decline in disenfranchisement since 2016 by 24%. Organization points out that in 3 states, Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee, 1 in every 13 adults is disenfranchised. African Americans are disenfranchised at a rate more than 3.5 times greater than those who are non-African American. 11 states continue to deny voting rights to some of of all individuals who have successfully fulfilled their prison, parole, or probation sentences. More than 1.1 million people are currently banned from voting, often because they cannot afford to pay court-ordered monetary sanctions. Result of advocacy pressure, 8 states have expanded voting rights to some non-incarcerated people since January 1st, 2020. What justifies the notion of disenfranchising felons? Only 51.3% of those eligible to vote actually voted in their 2000 presidential elections. Purity of the ballot box, which is only worthy people are fit to cast a vote. If not, consequences will follow from allowing felons to participate. Reforms. In 2016, California restored voting rights to people convicted of felony offense housed in jail but not in prison. 8 in 10 Americans report voting rights for those who have completed their sentences. Almost 2/3 support voting rights for those on parole or probation. Treating opiate abuse in correctional institutions. Substance abuse substantially impacts correctional populations with between 62% and 82%. Combined with behavioral counseling, medications increase opioid use and increase social functioning. 11% of inmates in need of substance use disorder treatment is correctional institutions actually received such treatment. In 2009, 55% of the U.S. prison systems offered methadone treatment. More than 50% did so only for pregnant women. Only 14% offered buprenorphine treatment, which is first-line medication for opioid addiction. Aging inmates and correctional release. Compassionate release. More people are serving prison sentences and remaining in prison for longer periods of time. Older inmates are the fastest growing segment of the inmate population in the U.S. In 2021, adults age 50 and older make up 24.2%. Oldest age group of 65 or older accounted for 4.3% of inmates. Research established that prisons are characterized by inmates suffering chronic health conditions and an accelerated aging process compared to non-inmates. Prisons, by their nature and their architecture, are ill-equipped to care for older inmates and are more so for inmates who are physically challenged. Research shows that inmates are afraid of dying in prison because of concerns about care, inability to be with loved ones, and the stigma of dying incarcerated. Compassionate release laws and policies. Compassionate release (CR) was originally established by federal law in 1984. CR is also termed medical parole when used to refer to a person expecting death due to terminal illnesses. 46 states have laws for compassionate release, but eligibility criteria varies from state to state. Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and Utah have no CR laws. Arizona only released 9 inmates on CR between 1993 and 2005. Eligibility requires a chronic, permanent, terminal, or irreversible physical or mental illness, condition, or disease.